Mr. Spaceman, in honor of Dave Crosby, who's here, and I'm going to do a little taste here of a message for people who have headaches. Dave is not feeling very, very well right now, and it could be a thing for him. It could be that it's 8 minutes after 10 if your clock reads the way it does with me, and it's BMR Better Music Radio on a Wednesday night, August the 30th, KFWB. It was a turned-on day for me. Yeah, how about you? Found out that your name was David Van Cortlandt Crosby by looking in Esquire's magazine this week, which had to do with everybody. What did the University of Minnesota do for Bob Dylan? What did the Annapolis Academy do for John Phillips? Nothing.
That was an interesting picture.
It was an interesting picture, wasn't it? How many years ago? Was it Santa Clara or San Diego College?
Oh, mine.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about John's picture. Oh, yeah, with the crew cut.
Oh,
horrible.
Where did they do his head?
Yeah, well, they do the whole shaving of the skull from the ears up, and then they do a crew cut on top, and I don't think lice can form in there or something. It's a whole number. How are you?
I'm all right, except my throat's blown.
Yeah, that was the report I got from your road manager Thursday at the opening, that you on the road had been hurting you.
Yeah, well, you know, every time you're playing someplace and there's an inadequate sound system, you wind up singing too loud to try and compensate for it, and you always blow your throat.
Do you ever carry your own equipment along?
Yeah, a lot of the time, but in this particular case, the place we were playing in was so big that even our own equipment couldn't fill it, and we blew our throats. It's weird. I probably wouldn't do it if I had voice training, you know, and I knew how to really sing. But I do it every time I really play in a club and do more than like one set a night. If I do 2 or 3 sets a night, I always blow my throat.
Well, let's see. You finished at the Go-Go for the first part of your 2-part thing. Went Sunday?
Right. Yeah, Sunday.
And
Gene's there now.
Gene's there now. You've been in the studios all this week?
Yeah.
You don't have a chance to relax or rest?
No time to cool it at all.
You want the name of my throat, man? Really, there's a great doctor out in Beverly Hills that Sinatra sent me to.
I've been to...
Like a name drop. Okay.
I've been to a half a dozen, and they just tell me, yes, that's right, stop singing.
Yes, forget about your bread and butter. Right? Yeah, but it's you know, actually the business, I think, of learning how to control the throat or use the instrument, which a throat is or voice is. I think it's a very simple thing to learn. Yeah,
but the trouble is, you see, once you start training it, then it starts getting that artificial pear-shaped sound, you know.
You're doing that kind of jazz instead of being true.
You know, and I can't hack that really too much. I don't think I would sound... I mean, I'm no great singer now, but I would think I would be less then.
You're pretty thin. When's the album going to be due? If I can start throwing, you know, stock questions in.
What did he say? He said tonight, November? November, I think it is. See, we would like to do it sooner, but we've got to take a vacation or we're all going to flip out.
Yeah.
And besides which, they promised me I could go hunt for a boat. So, that's what I said. Hooray!
Hey.
So, I'm going to go do that, and I think Chris and Michael are going to go to Hawaii and fall out on the sand some more.
Michael's blowing everybody's mind with his new haircut and the whole different image.
Hey, that, you know, it changes what's happening.
Sure.
He had long hair before most of these people ever thought of it, you know?
Right.
And he just got tired of that whole scene, and so he decided to cut it. He'll probably get tired of having it short and then grow it out again.
It gets curly. With him, it gets curly when it's short. I noticed that. It was like sort of curly.
Yeah, it looks a lot like McCartney's hair now.
Does a lot of numbers for ladies, man. You know, they want to run their fingers.
Yeah, the ladies wanted to run their fingers through Michael anyway.
Don't they ever? They've been really running after him for years, doing all those flashes.
True.
Wow.
Fun to watch.
Isn't it? It's a kicking
fun to watch.
Early days, from the days of the trip, you know, and I ran into him one time, just staggering down the street.
A wreck.
I don't believe it.
What am I going to do?
Gotta get out of town. Gotta get out of town.
Can I hide out at your house?
Right. He was living in a little funky apartment house, you know, almost diagonally across from the trip. It was very, very ridiculous. Yeah. People were waiting. I got an appointment with David. Oh, right. I mean, with Michael. Oh, right.
Yeah.
He'll see him around.
7 or 8 of them sitting on the steps. I remember. Funny time.
Ridiculous time.
Anyway.
Great. Would you get on the record right now and tell me why the objections to Lady Friend? The requests keep coming in every night, night after night, and I've explained to people individually, and I don't think I've mentioned it on the air. I might have, that you weren't happy with the final mix. They remixed it after.
I'm not happy with it, but then you can never be, I suppose, because it's always a compromise between a number of people. To me, the final mix of Lady Friend sounds like mush. I can't hear anything distinguished out clearly. And maybe that's my fault. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty record, and it didn't make it, so you never can tell. But then the record that I think is the best single record I ever heard in my whole life never even got played at all.
Which one's that?
I Feel Free by the Cream.
Yay. Oh, I played out of the album, but it was never played as a single.
Yeah, but
right.
I mean, you're not American radio, you know. You're a total exception to the whole thing, completely from start. You have been all along.
And I've been sort of underground for a long time, waiting for the explosion to happen.
Things are getting better all the time, and besides, you get by with a little help from your friends.
Don't I ever? They're beautiful people up in Kirkwood.
Hey, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It's going to get a whole lot better soon, I hope. Here.
It is. It's there, and they listen and they say, "What's that going down there?" And I say, "Well, I'll explain it to them the next day." They, oh, really? And, and it does. It takes a little, it's a step-by-step process of explaining to the people that count, that pay the bills, and that kind of thing. But they're beautiful. They've been very, very tasty.
You know how it seems to be getting better to me, man? Mostly, it's a thing that I've been thinking about for the last few days, because everywhere I go, I keep seeing, when you're learning something, a particular truth, or something, everywhere you go, you keep seeing little examples of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for the last few days, I've been walking around saying I get by with a little help from my friends.
Mm.
And not I get high, I get by.
Mm.
And I'm going to try with a little help from my friends.
Right.
And I see around me, you know what I see? I see groups that 3 years ago were competing with each other and saying, well, my lead guitar player can play faster than your lead guitar player, and besides that, we think up further out stuff, so there, yeah.
Right.
And out-hipping each other.
Right.
And losing the whole track. Hey, now they come to each other's sessions and watch and laugh and say, hey, man, can I help?
Yeah, exactly.
And people play, man, and for each other and help each other and write tunes together and break rules even. Mm-hmm. A lot of rule breaking going on.
Right. I'd like to read
a couple of names that we wish we could drop, don't we?
Exactly.
And we can't.
No.
But, man, there's a lot of rule breaking going on, and I really approve all the way around. Because, see, that's the only way I think that we're going to improve the whole scene, man, is if all of us get by with a little help from our friends. Really. I mean, if we don't help each other, who the heck is gonna?
I wanted to recap exactly what David said up in Monterey, which blew a lot of minds, because how many did that fairgrounds hold for concerts? About 7,000 to 9,000 people, actually, right?
Supposed to be. I think it was closer to 11.
They were really pressing a lot of people in there.
Especially Sunday when everybody just left out and started letting everyone in.
Right. The whole security broke down. And the Beatles are coming. The Beatles are coming. I want to be on stage with the Beatles. And everybody, every young groupie, every groupie girl, turned older, was there on stage. And the stage was groaning. But what was interesting was, there's David up there with the Buffalo Springfield. Wow. I'm not, I don't say that in any ranked thing, but that was a whisper. You could hear the vibrations going through the entire open hall.
It put a lot of people uptight.
It sure did.
But, see, it didn't put me uptight.
No.
It didn't put Stephen Stills uptight.
No.
Because we were two musicians, and we wanted to make music. And to heck with the rules, man. That's not what I normally say, but this is radio.
He's a taste and a half.
But rules have nothing to do with music at all that I can tell or have ever been able to tell. Music doesn't seem to be concerned with rules or possession or who's in what group.
That's right.
I think it's just people who want to make music, and they will do it if they're groovy and they want to. I don't
know if you had a chance to read an article that Tony Barrow, who was the press officer, I guess he still is.
I remember.
Remember Tony? He was doing a little report from London, which had to do with primarily the Stones' new record of "We Love You" and "Dandelion." And
beautiful record, man.
Great record. And he says, well, of course, the Stones have been coming to Beatles sessions, and the Beatles have been coming to Stones sessions, and of course they have contractual difficulties, but they are getting closer together. But he makes the point of stating in the article they have contractual difficulties, which means to do that they have not allowed, one person. But he says it right out there.
Hey, listen, at the top of all the record companies, or almost all the record companies, are these old, gray-faced, suety old men, you dig?
Right.
And they're sitting there, and, hey, they want to sell another 30,000 pieces of plastic Wednesday. They don't care about the music. They never even heard the music. Music who? Joe Music. He ran the delicatessen. They never heard of any of us, man, and they don't listen and they don't care. If they really listened, they would hear some pretty strange things on the records that we're sneaking out.
You better believe.
There's a couple records on right now. I got things on them that a lot of people are going to start hearing about the 400th time, and a few record executives are going to get fired when they find out.
It's a beautiful thing. I had a talk with a reverend. I won't mention his name because it's not finalized as yet, who did a fantastic thing on me. He says, I was ready to drop out. I was ready to really drop out and get into everything. He says, there's a big war going on with my people in this community between the adults and the teenagers, because the adults picking up on this level of the communicative thing insofar as the lyric is concerned. Look at their teenage children, and they've lost that contact. And he wants me to put on, and I'd be interested in talking to you about it another time, an adult concert to give them copies of lyrics, tell them where it's at, let them learn all the inner meanings, all the levels of consciousness within it, and find out where they're...
You have to find a really dynamite cat to run it and communicate to them.
You want to do it?
I pass.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm that...
You're dynamite. You've given me so many good raps, you and Barry Friedman. We've been talking now, David and I, for about 6-8 months about the Better Music Radio and about where it's at. Well, look, if you've won your battle with the executives in the sense of here's the airplane in town. By the way, that dovetails into what you said before about people dropping in and helping out. There'll be some surprises about that particular group, about certain people there, who've done numbers. And everybody knows that people are crossing the contractual boundaries to help out their buddies. But the executives, let's make this point, Dave. The executives are, leaning back and say, okay, it'll take us 6 months to put that album out. You want to create a 12-minute or a 15-minute thing? Okay, go ahead. Right?
Some. Here and there, you'll find one or two who will turn around and say, okay, all right, so you want to get far out? Go. Well. And they let us fool around, A producer over at Columbia who produces us, Gary Usher, who's a very nice cast, man. Chad and Jeremy came to him, man, and said, we want to make a very strange record. We want to make a record that is not a pop record and that is not a little song. We want to make a short symphony that is more than a symphony. And they did. Hey, they broke every rule in the recording business making that record, just about.
And you heard it in San Francisco last night?
No, I just heard it tonight down at Columbia. What I heard in San Francisco last night was the Cream Live, which is sort of like running into a steamroller in an alley.
Oh, can you stop right there while we go through that number? And let me talk about the Go-Go, where Gene is right now. And I'd like to ask that question after I'm finished. And you got the L.A. traffic there, too, Harry, right? Okay. The on stage of the Whiskey Go-Go right now, Gene Clark. And the things to come. And don't miss a great show at the Whiskey Go-Go. It's on right now.
Things to come are a guest.
They are, Kiki. And Gene is there. At the Hullabaloo. I'm sorry, that's later. At the Whiskey Go-Go. I got a taste of the Hullabaloo later. And, of course, the Birds will be back beginning again tomorrow night, the 31st, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Pick up on this here. To try to do a number there with Mike or with David or with Jim and Chris. And the ladies of the Smooth Sleek Hair, they'll be out there and turn out in their best fashion.
And sets longer. Relaxer Curl is easy to use. No messy turbans, no touchy timings. Just spray it on. Comb it through your hair. Set in large rollers, dry, comb out, and use it after shampoos or between shampoos. You can even use it between your armadillo.
Between your armadillo. And only costs $2 for about 12 to 16 applications. And the question came to mind here. That's Relaxer Curl, available right now at the cosmetic counters and beauty salons everywhere. It blew my own mind. The question comes to mind. Here's Gene in between. It's a funny thing. The question would not have come up a year after Gene had left the group. The question would not have come up, but it's so obvious to anybody who loves the Birds, the fact that you did a split weekend and then Gene came in for 3 days and you're going back in for a split weekend, And
well,
what do you communicate? You still communicate, hi Gene, hi David. I would imagine.
Sure. Obviously we do. Hey, you can't shut off a cat that you love.
Okay.
And neither can he.
That's right.
But see, I don't know whose idea it was for him to play in.
That's what I want to know.
In between.
Was that Elmer's idea?
It might have been. Elmer, knew us all before we split up, and he was always one of the ones that was saying, "Hey, can't you guys please, try it back together because it was really groovy and everything." And Elmer's a very beautiful cat, but he's on a nostalgia trip, and that's not
where
here
it's
and
at.
now.
Particularly with a man who's able to have the seichel, the book, The Birds, followed up by The Cream and Mike Bloomfield. Is that heavy? You better believe.
Hey, I want you to know. Last night, man, I sat there. The first thing that happened to me was Mike Bloomfield ran over me with his whole band, fronted by Buddy Miles, who is one of the most beautiful people in the world.
Beautiful.
And they just cooked their brains out, man. They really.
Where was it? Where was it?
At the Fillmore.
At the Fillmore.
And I'm sitting up there in the light booth, and I'm really grooved, obviously. And I was watching it, and then the next thing that happened was Gary Burton's quartet.
Yeah.
With Larry Coryell.
Gary Burton from the Jazz Bag into this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what Bill Graham is into. He's booking jazz acts like Charles Lloyd, who is beautiful. Oh, beautiful. But Gary Burton. Gary Burton, yeah. Larry Coryell, that's his name, yeah. Larry Coryell is just another incredible guitar player. He's very young, which most of the jazz guitar players are not. And he's beautiful, beautiful, lyrical, incredible, inventive, great, wonderful guitar player. And then the next thing that happened to me was these three cats walked out. And they walked out there, man, like three young, cool persons who were just sort of ambling out into a park. An empty park. And they very casually plugged in and tuned up. They're each of them, the bass player and
guitar and drums.
And there's three, bass, guitar, and drums. And the bass and the guitar each run through 4 Marshall amplifiers in a stack that's higher than a human being and about 6 feet wide. And then all of a sudden, Clapton brings his hand up and slams it down, and your whole head explodes. And the first thing that occurs to you is, no, they made some mistake. Something's wrong here, and my ears hurt. Please stop. Please stop. Stop that. And then the next thing that happens to you is, my God, how did that drummer do that? And the next
Ginger Baker.
And hey, Ginger Baker has got 2 bass drums tuned to 2 different notes, 2 small tom-toms tuned to 2 different notes, and 2 big tom-toms tuned to 2 different notes. And he's got a snare on top of the whole thing, so he can go crack, boom, 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 down, boom.
Oh, wow.
And he gets these runs like.
If I play the Toad, in the next half hour.
That's it.
Would that give an example?
That's exactly it. It is full of it.
Meanwhile, I will pick up on this by the Sgt. Pepper Boys, and don't forget the Beatle Bit on September the 9th. Send the top 5.
Remember, you get by with a little help from your friends.
That's right. You get by with a little help from your friends. With a little help from your friends, man. Which means, eventually will be a whole big bash, all right? Crosby and I here. I
heard a curious and rather disturbing rumor that it's very hard to find newsreel footage of what happened at Century Park anymore.
That's true.
Which isn't a curious thing.
It's like, let's get it over with and not doing things with here.
Yeah.
Bad shtick. I wanted to finish the article, and then we'll go back to play a thing by the...
Yeah, that's a good article.
Isn't it? It's a fantastic article. I left off a while back. We're talking about the article where the Beatles in the Sunday London Times say now they have given up drugs. It's written by Hunter Davis.
Well, no, you got it straightened because they didn't say it.
No,
the paper said
this paper said it. True, right? Well, there's a quote in here from them. They do say it earlier in the article. Paul says it was an experience we went through, and now it's so we don't need it anymore. We think we're finding other ways of getting there.
That's right. That's right. There are a million roads up the mountain, man, and transcendental meditation is certainly one.
It is
question about it.
I'm very glad that Maharishi made it over there to London. Anyway, getting back to where we stepped off, when George lit some joss sticks and John said, what if Maharishi was just going to turn out to be another version of what they already knew? He said, like some are on EMI and some on Decca, but it's really still records. And George, who was the most knowledgeable, said he didn't think so. He felt this was going, now we turn to page 3. I love the English paper stock. Isn't that wild?
Mm-hmm.
How's that sound in there, Harry? Great sound. We might record that one time. do a whole thing on, Barry Friedman wants to do a thing on the BMR naval band, Blow and Belly. We might do a thing on paper one day, right? Anyway, George Harrison said, who was the most knowledgeable, said he didn't think so. He felt this was going to be it, meaning transcendental meditation. He has been the leader in studying India religion since he took up the sitar. He's been studying and searching for a long time. He went to Haight-Ashbury a few weeks ago to see the hippies. This is interesting, David. We were just talking about that, but was very disappointed by them. Last week he went to Cornwall and climbed a mountain with a yogi, but nothing happened. This is still the article as written by the reporter. They were ushered into a Maharishi's compartment where he sat cross-legged on a white sheet laid out on the seat by one of his followers. This is his final world tour, and now he's retiring to India. In 8 years, he has had an enormous effect in most Western countries. He has followers in 25 different countries and permanent academies in most of them. His philosophy, as I, meaning the reporter, understand it, is a sort of yogi MRA, moral rearmament, I believe, although much more spiritual and with a special technique for meditation. Life is a homogeneous whole. It consists of spiritual values and material values. Consciousness of self has to be found because without inner spiritual values, the ordinary physical and the ordinary physical and material pleasures which life offers cannot properly be enjoyed. I was talking to your Malcolm Muggeridge. His philosophy of life is all wrong. There is no use in negation or denying yourself things just for the sake of it. That is not a philosophy of life, not the magazine, but life. Bangor was pandemonium, but amidst all the thousands of shrieking teenagers, there were little huddles of very genteel, middle-aged ladies clutching flowers, waiting to welcome Maharishi. And at the college, his 300 followers, members of his International Meditation Society, were also the same genteel officer-class background. This is a reporter observing it according to his own particular background. And all clutching flowers as well. It was surprising to realize that while teenage flower power had all the publicity, there are many more ordinary adults up and down the country similarly looking for spiritual guidance. For ordinary adults up and down the country, we'll read up and down the world.
Yeah, here.
Yeah. And we'll get back to the Haight-Ashbury bag becoming a bummer.
Yeah, well, I can understand that. Actually, I think that is more the paper's editorial viewpoint, because I talked to Derek, and he was with George when he was up there. As a matter of fact, it was...
Derek Taylor, that is, yeah.
Yeah, I, among other people, was one of the people who told George to go up there and look for himself, because he wanted to know what was going on. And... But see, I've gotten a lot of reports back lately from people like, for instance, the Grateful Dead are moving out.
Is that really? Is that
yeah,
true?
Heck yes,
Wow.
man. Hey, listen, you know what happens when you take the national media of a country and focus them on one particular area and say, this is where it's happening, baby? You know what happens? Every idiot and fool and loose nut in the world goes straight there.
Beeline.
And I mean an awful lot of bad people, not just pretty people. An awful lot of complete bummers, man. Really, hey, hundreds of old weird drunks, man, asleep in the doorways, and all kinds of weird criminals hanging around, and all kinds of hey, just bum people, man, doing all kinds of really awful numbers that have got. Well,
what was once beauty has now become real sordid, in other words. Right?
In a lot of ways, yeah. And what happens all too often to young groovies that go there, they get wolf packed by a bunch of people who spend all of their time doing nothing but that, just wolf packing all the kids that come into. Hey, I used to watch that go down in the village 5 years ago. Used to do the same thing. Little innocent chicks would come in from Duluth, man, and like 5 cats would just. One night after another, take her on all kinds of strange trips, man, and cop her bread, and find out if she had anything else, and cop that, and do all kinds of numbers on their heads.
Did they have any? They expected hundreds of thousands. That didn't materialize this summer, did it?
No.
Okay, that's a good thing.
I got to tell you something weird.
What?
You know where an awful lot of them went? Here.
Did they come? That was going to be one of my questions. Can you put your thoughts together while I take a commercial break or two out, and we'll talk about that, because I wanted to make a comparison. Say whether we got going down that is different and vice versa. Okay. Okay. I want to tell everybody about the featuring Ginger Baker. Let's have that little number, and then we're going to talk more about what's happening here and what's happening up in San Francisco. that's a little taste of the Toad by the Cream. And just exactly what Dave Crosby was talking about a while back that he saw last night at Fillmore, and it'll be in this coming next weekend, right after the Whiskey Go-Go presents The Birds and the Things to Come, and that'll be back tomorrow night, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the Cream will be coming in on Monday. So you want to see what's really happening, you go there to the Whiskey Go-Go tonight, Gene Clark's closing, The Birds back tomorrow, and with the Things to Come, and then the Cream and Mike Bloomfield. I almost forgot that little shtick. And a little shtick on behalf of some kiddies, and then back to rapping with Dave Crosby again. Okay? You got something happening there, Bed? Oh, got that little thing there? Okay, never mind. I'll do a little number here. Who can resist the tears of a child? The tears of a hungry little boy in India who has no one to give him food, and the tears of a homeless little girl in Korea who has no one to love and care for her. So if you'd like to help feed a hungry child, help give a homeless child a home with loving care, thousands of children need help. And help one little child by writing Christian Children's Fund, Richmond, Virginia. Christian Children's Fund, Richmond, Virginia. Labels and everything, it's all right. Okay. Where were we at? We were talking about what? Mr. Dave Crosby of the Birds.
You know that there are children in India and in Africa and in Saudi Arabia and in China and in Southeast Asia dying every minute because they don't get any food. And do you know that the United States has miles and miles of huge barges full of grain, full
surplus
of grain,
yeah.
rotting, going to waste.
It's bad news.
That's an ego problem, man.
Yeah, it is an ego problem. It has to do with what we've got going down here.
Yeah, that's hideous, man. That just blows my mind every time I think of it.
That's going to change, Dave.
There's some other ones, man. Can I drop a couple?
Sure.
Maybe they'll FCC us, but maybe not. Do you realize that if we took the defense budget of the United States and spent it on cancer research for 1 year, we'd beat it?
That's right.
Heart disease for 1 year, we'd beat it?
We talked about this in reference to space exploration.
Space exploration, man. We would have been on Mars last week. A week ago Tuesday, we would have had 6 people there in a tent looking around. And hey, see, now dig it. It's still all a communications problem, and it's still all just people trying to get elbow room. There's 800 million rice eaters in your back pocket, man. The world is the size of a golf ball, and all those people need room. And there is all of that room out there, man. Millions and millions of planets. Millions of them. And all we got to do is think up the gadgets to get there. And every time we've had to think up a gadget before we were able to, you can't fly. Sure, tell it to Curtis Wright.
Yeah, I told it to Warble and told it to Wilbur. It'll never get off the ground, but it did. No, I think that's going to change, Dave. You know, the times are. Going back to that one beautiful thing, the times they are changing. We know it. We're living it. We're evolving in it.
They are, but ever so slowly, and it tears me up, man, to think about those just complete iniquities, those complete wrongnesses that are sitting there screaming, man.
Do you, in doing a proselytizing as you're doing at this particular moment, you do it in your music, right?
Well, am I really, or am I just pointing at a tree and saying there's a tree? The grain is there, and the kids are there starving and dying. And
you want to expound upon what it's there?
Well?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not politics, is it,
no,
really?
No, it's not politics.
It's children dying and grain in a boat rotting.
It's an honest-to-goodness,
I can't
exposition of your views, and it's right.
I don't see how...
But there are more people who think that way than you imagine, and you come across
Seems to be that. I must tell you now that there's a major change in what's going on in national policy in the world. It seems that now the major news media...